By recording our session today, this will allow both you as well as some of your colleagues who may not have been able to participate today to view our session going forward. So we will post all of our sessions on our website so that you will have access to these for future use. During our presentation, you may have noticed that I've placed this into presentation mode so that you guys can actually hear me speaking. If you would like to communicate with me or with others within the room, at the top you actually have a toolbar that is available. And on that toolbar, you will see that there is a little conversation bubble where you can enter a message. So again, if you have a question for me or if you have a comment that you'd like to throw out to the group, you have that opportunity. So let's go ahead and test that real quick. If you would please, in your comment bar, if you'll go ahead and just say good morning, and I will respond back to everyone, just to make sure that you have that functionality. Wonderful, wonderful. It's working amazingly. Love that technology. Excellent, excellent. So please feel free to use that freely throughout our presentation today. And so the purpose of today's session is to share with you some things that are going on with the Georgia Career Information Center. At the top of everyone's list is what is going on with GCIS for this year. Well, the Georgia Department of Education and the Georgia Career Information Center, we've actually partnered together to provide the Georgia Career Information System, or GCIS as most of you know it, and the administration tools to every public middle school and high school in the state of Georgia. And so with those components, we want to share with you what you have access to and also to introduce you to some additional resources that you can use to enhance your ongoing career and advisement, your annual and ongoing advisement sessions with your students. As a recent high school site coordinator, you should have a pretty good grasp on the basics such as the GCIS features and navigation. So again, today we're going to look at some of the in-depth components that are available to you. If you are new to GCIS, I would encourage you to also attend the GCIS for new high school users webinar, which we're actually hosting tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th, and it'll actually be at 11:30 as well. So feel free to register for that if you are not familiar with the layout or if you need a refresher. There are still seats available in that session for tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get started with today's presentation. And I'm going to begin by going to our main website, which is www.gcic.peachnet.edu. And when you enter that particular URL, you will see over on the left-hand side that you have two areas that you can click on to get to our login screen. The first one says, click here to enter Georgia Career Information System. And the second one says, click here to enter Georgia Career Information System Junior. Your students can click on either one of those elements because both will take your students to a login page. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one, click here to enter Georgia Career Information System. And you'll see that I was in here a little bit earlier. So here's the login screen that I'd like for you to see when your students actually log in for the first time. Now, to explore the information in terms of GCIS, you'll actually have two ways in which you can enter into the system. The first way is you can actually enter your school's generic username and password. And every school has a generic username and password that you can distribute to counselors, you can distribute it to teachers, you can distribute it to volunteer parents, to anyone who has an interest in career development at your school can have access to that username and password at your discretion. And that information is actually shared initially with your principal as well as your site coordinator. If you are a principal or a site coordinator and you have not received your information, please let us know so that we can resend out an email that we released back in July so that you can share with us, yes, I want my username and password, and also to tell us who your official site coordinator is. We can then begin the process of getting you guys into the system for this year so that you can get started with your career development and your annual and ongoing advisement with your students. The generic username and password would allow for general exploration. So your students would have an opportunity to go into the system and complete various assessments. They would have an opportunity to look at occupations. They would have occupations to look at post-secondary schools. They can look at military occupations. They will have an opportunity to look at our $10 billion worth of financial aid library. The catch is they can only explore it. They cannot save that information. If you want your students to have the ability to save their information, then you would want them to enter into the system using what is called the My Portfolio username and password. And the My Portfolio username and password is actually assigned to an individual student. It is specific and has a unique username and password that you can share with that student. And with that information, again, your students can go in, explore, and save their information. So they can complete an assessment, save the results, and be able to log back in and continue with that information. And the portfolio is very important in terms of your annual and ongoing advisement, in that you can go back and see exactly what the students have saved over the course of this year or years in past, and also be able to guide them as they make decisions moving forward. We can assist with making portfolios for your students here at the Georgia Career Information Center, or you can have the autonomy to create that using the administration tools. If you would like for us to assist you with that, you can simply send an email to our GCIS coordinator at gsu.edu and inquire as to how you can get that process started. So for today's presentation, I'll go ahead and log in with my portfolio username and password so that you can see several of the bells and whistles I'd like to demonstrate for you today. So I'm going to go ahead and click Sign In. And when I sign into the system, I'm actually able to see the main page of the Georgia Career Information System. So again, if you are a returning user, you may be familiar with the layouts of the system. You'll see that there are various tabs located across the top that actually house several of the components within the system. And you will notice that the My Portfolio tab is actually available. Now, when you log in with your generic username and password, since it doesn't know who you are at that point, the My Portfolio tab is actually silent. When you log in with a student, you will be able to navigate through several of those components on that particular tab. One way that you can differentiate whether you are a generic user versus a My Portfolio user is that you can actually see your name on the far right-hand side. And you'll also see that your name is duplicated at the very top of the screen in the little toolbar. And so in this case, you'll see my student's name is Cindy. And when I hover over Cindy's name, you'll see that there's a little drop-down arrow next to it. This actually allows you to look at different features and functions that you can accomplish just by being a portfolio user. So on this little toolbar, you have the opportunity to view the contents of the portfolio. You have the opportunity to share your portfolio with a visitor. You have an opportunity to print your portfolio. You can edit an image, as well as you can look at your account settings. Let me go ahead and demonstrate a couple of those for you. So when I click on View My Portfolio, viewing my portfolio allows me to see different areas of my portfolio that are kind of chunked into areas. So for instance, if I just wanted to see where are the pages and the results that I've saved previously, In this section, I can actually see my favorite items, I can see my sort and assessment results, and I can see my stored files and my links. And I can either click on the little plus sign to the right of what are the pages and results I've saved, or I can click on Expand Overview. And when I click on those particular areas, it would allow me to go to those specific items so I can see exactly the content that are housed within each. So just a quick way to navigate through your portfolio. The next area that you have is called Share My Portfolio, and this is actually duplicated. So I can either click on Share My Portfolio by hovering over my name at the top, or if I'm already within my portfolio, I can click on Share Portfolio here. And so to share my portfolio, I would simply click on that little link, and this tells me that I can share my portfolio with the visitor. Now, this is a really cool feature in that it allows your students to set a limited amount of access to their portfolio to someone other than their counselor. So this person could potentially be a student's mentor. This could be a student's teacher as advisor cohort. This could be big brother or big sister who you actually want input from that particular person. So the student has the autonomy to set who can visit their portfolio, when they can visit that portfolio, and what that person can see within that portfolio. So to establish that particular component, I can either click on the Go to Visitors, the little gray bar that turns a little turquoise, or I can click on the corresponding icon. And when I click on Go to Visitors, you'll see that Cindy has invited a couple of people to see her portfolio in the past. And to add a new visitor, I would simply go over to the right-hand side, click on Add Visitor. And as I shared, I get to set the boundaries as to what that person can see within my portfolio. So I get to set that person's username and that person's password. I get to set their first name and their last name. And I can also email this information directly to that visitor so that he or she could have immediate access to my portfolio for the set time period. And you can see I can set the expiration date. And actually say this person is allowed to see specific parts of my component through Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and test this and make a quick username and password for a person. And I'm just going to go ahead and type in a password for them. And I'm going to send this to Donald Duck because he's very important in my career development. And I've said that he can only see my portfolio through September 9th. And you'll see I've checked automatically send an email. Yes, absolutely. And then when I click on Add, I get to state exactly what that person can see within my portfolio. So I may just want them or that person to see my sort and assessment results. Give me some feedback on what you think about this information. And I would go to the bottom, and I would click Update View. And so when Donald Duck logs into the account, he'll be able to only see my assessment results and actually can comment and provide me with feedback on that information so I can make informed decisions and also use this as a part of my annual and ongoing career advisement. So, really nifty tool. The second item that I would like to show you on Cindy's toolbar at the top, and notice that I've not gone back to the home page by clicking on the house. I can still navigate through the system from the page where I'm currently residing. So when I go back up to Cindy's name, I can print my portfolio, and when I click on Print, it'll give me a pop-up window. So the same way that I was able to earmark what I wanted my visitor to see, I can earmark what I want to include on this portfolio report. So I just want to see my favorites. and I would click on Print Selected Items, and you'll see that my print window will come up with just the elements that I have selected. And I'm going to click on Cancel, and I can go back to my screen. And the last thing that I want to show you on the My Portfolio toolbar is what is called the Account Settings. Now this is where your students will have an opportunity to modify their information. So if they've spelled their name incorrectly for some reason, they'll have an opportunity to go back and say, no, it's Cindy with an IE. And I can then change my last name. I can change my email address. I can update my graduation year. I can also enter a new password if needed, if that is something that you guys wish to pursue. I can update my security questions. So let's say that I forgot my password. I can actually log into the system and say I forgot my password. It will ask me, what is your username or what is your email address? And then it will send me a temporary password to me, and I can then move forward. And so I'm going to click Update. And so Cindy's name has now changed. And let's go back over to my account settings. And on this page, I can also transfer my portfolio between schools. So if I am a middle school student who is or if I was a middle school student last year and I'm now a 9th grader at my school, I can elect to change my school/organization. So if a student remembers his or her username and password for middle school, and he or she logs in with that username and password, they have the opportunity to move their portfolio to their new school. And it will ask for the new school's username and password, and this is simply that generic username and password that's available to anyone associated with that school. So the student would type in that username and that password, and he or she will click Change. And it will say, are you sure you want to move this portfolio to XYZ High School? And when they click Yes, that portfolio now becomes a part of that new school. So again, another way that you can empower your students to move their portfolio. And again, another opportunity for you to engage in that ongoing career advisement, because you can see what they did last year or in years past and be able to build upon what's already there. If you look at the very top of the screen, you'll see our logo. Anytime that you're navigating through the system and you just want to kind of go back to page 1, you can always click on that logo and it'll take you back to the home page of GCIS. So you have the opportunity of clicking on the house, or you can click on that logo to take you back to this first page. Let's take a look at a few GCIS resources that will, again, help you with that ongoing advisement and your interactions with your high school students. A really cool feature that I'd like to share with everyone is what is called the Personal Learning Plan. And the Personal Learning Plan helps your students to set goals and make plans. It displays important information that is saved within that portfolio and allows you to also set future career goals and to also elect to make educational plans. So to locate the Personal Learning Plan, or what we sometimes call here in the office the PLP, you would actually hover over the My Portfolio tab. And under the My Portfolio tab, you'll see we have a series of questions. We're going to go down to the question called, how do I create my personal learning plan? And to do that, you would do the Personal Learning Plan. So we're going to go ahead and click on that item. And when we click on the Personal Learning Plan tab link, it's actually going to show you a little introduction about what's included and encompassed in this particular element. And we're going to go to the bottom right-hand corner, and we're going to click on Generate PDF. And when I click on Generate PDF, you'll see that on Chrome, it'll come up in the bottom of your screen as it is a download. And when I click on that element, it's going to show me the information saved within my personal learning plan. The first thing that you'll notice on this personal learning plan, you'll see the student's name. So remember, we changed Cindy's name from CINDY to IE. You'll see it automatically accept those changes and makes it relevant wherever in the system. Real-time data storage, real-time changes, and real-time reports. And so you'll see that her last name is listed, so Douglas Johnson, Cindy with the IE. If her middle name had been recorded, that too would appear. You'll see her school name is here. She's at ABC High School. If she happens to have a student ID attached to her portfolio information, it too would appear. And you can also see that her graduation year, she is a current 11th grade student. You will see that inside of her personal learning plan that you can see what her career goal is, and she assigned this career goal November 23rd of last year. And if you're ever kind of curious as to where this information comes from, you can actually see a breadcrumb under each one of the areas, again, as it pulls important information from various places within that portfolio. So for this particular one, it comes from the career plan, the setting goals subtopic, and the question, what are your career goals? For Cindy, her education plans are she plans to obtain a bachelor's degree, specifically a Bachelor's of Science in Business Management. On page 2, you can see that she has saved a series of assessments and sorting strategies. So she saved the Career Cluster Inventory 48-question version on November 16, 2015. She last saved the Career Cluster Inventory 80-question version on July 26th of 2016. And she entered what she learned. So her highest cluster was Law, Public Safety, Corrections, and Security Career Cluster. She did the interest profiler, both the 180-question version and 60-question version. And I will demonstrate the 60-question version for you today. Additionally, she saved the Learning Style Survey, which is another new item I'd like to show for you today. And then Reality Check, Skills, and the Work Importance Locator. And again, this is being pulled directly from her portfolio and the Sort and Assessments component. Now, just kind of as a tip, whenever you're looking at this information, it's going to pull the last time that that student has completed that assessment. So as you start looking through Cindy's her portfolio, you'll notice that Cindy actually has taken the Interest Profiler 180-question version maybe 75 times. So again, it's going to show you the most recent component of that element. Continuing down, Cindy has earmarked 4 of the 17 career clusters that are of interest to her. As you may know, the state of Georgia is a little different from other states in that we have 17 clusters instead of the 16 federal career clusters. The 17th cluster that was added maybe 2 years ago now was the energy cluster, and you'll see that we've actually embedded the energy cluster throughout our system. A piece of information that we gathered through surveying you as our end user is you wanted to see how we could differentiate an occupation from a career cluster. So what we've done is we have added the extension career cluster to each one of the career clusters as a differentiating factor. So kudos to you guys for giving us great feedback. We always want to use your experience to enhance our system. Continuing down, you'll see that she has saved a series of occupations as well as career clusters. You will see that this student has selected a pathway. So she is going on the high school graduation requirements as her pathway. And under that particular pathway, it shows the subjects. So this is actually a condensed report of the course planner. So you'll be able to see in the first column the subjects that she's selected. You'll see each one of the high school grade levels, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And you can see what courses she has planned. Another really unique feature about this is that if you decided to have the course planner inside of your system, we could actually include the number of credits available, and this would total it up for your students. And so remember that this is something that you will inherit from your 8th graders matriculating from your feeder middle schools. If she happened to have test scores, so she took the SAT or the ACT, she could enter her scores. And please keep in mind that these are unofficial and are entered by the end user. If they are interested in programs to study, they can enter that information. Post-secondary schools, this is something that you want to be very cognizant of, because as you're doing your career advisement milestones, your 11th grade students have to save 3 post-secondary schools. And this is a place where you can actually have that information previewed when you are sharing with mom and dad during that annual advisement conference with them. So great kind of a way to kind of give them a summary of everything that the student has done and give them a tangible component that they can take home with them. And then just going down to the last page, they can enter their action plan for the year. They can talk about who their support network encompasses. You can include comments while the student is really on track, or we may need to look at some items in order to ensure that you reach your goals. Whatever it is that you want to do, this would be a great document to share during that parent-student-teacher conference. And lastly, you have the opportunity to have the student to sign, have the parent or guardian to sign, or have the career counselor, advisor, or whomever to sign off saying that, yes, we have seen these components. So again, great resource that you have at your fingertips. I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and I'd like to show you guys some of our other new resources that we have available, and to also give you some more items that you can use to support your ongoing advisement. One item that we have updated as of recent is what is called the Combined Report of Assessments, or what we call CRA in our office. And the Combined Report of Assessments allows your students to identify occupations that appear across several assessments that they may have taken, and this may actually allow them to see whether it's something they would want to move forward with in terms of what to do after they graduate from high school. So to locate that Combined Report of Assessments, we're going to stick with the My Portfolio tab. And on that My Portfolio tab, you have the question called, what reports can I run to show my progress? And the report that you will run is the Combined Report of Assessments. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that element. And so the Combined Report of Assessments, there are actually 2 ways that you can implement this particular item. The first way is that you can include the most recent results from every assessment and sorting strategy. Or you may have a different perspective and may want to just see what are the results across one particular assessment. So with this particular option, you can choose up to 8 of any of the assessment results so that you can see a cross-section of those elements. So for today's example, I'm going to click on Include Only the Most Recent. So when I click on that, you'll see that I have the most recent of that career cluster inventory 80 questions. So we're going to pull from the results of July 26, 2016. And I'm going to compare that to the 48-question version, which was completed on November 16, 2015. Oxsort, very same day. Interest Profiler, 180-question version. I did the 60-question version on the 7th, go figure. And then I also did the Work Importance Locator on 4/27/2016. And we're going to wrap that up with the skills assessment that we did on August 12, 2015. In the bottom left-hand corner, I'm going to click on View Report. And when I click on View Report, I can see a report of all of those assessments in one seamless area. So just to show you a couple of the tips of navigating this report, you'll see that the column header abbreviations correspond with these 8 particular columns. So the very first column are actually the occupations, and it shows the number of lists in which that occupation appears. Column 2, CCI, corresponds with the Career Cluster Inventory 80-question version. Column 3, CCI 48. Column 4 is your OCSORT. Column 5, Interest Profiler 180 questions. Column 6, Interest Profiler 60 questions. Column 7, Work Importance Locator, and Column 8, Skills. And you'll see that I've highlighted those as I'm going across so that you can verify that information is there. So when I'm looking at all of these assessments, specifically these 7, I can see that on those 7, there are 2 occupations that appear 5 times. So the first one that appears on 5 of those 7s is the new accounts clerk. Appears on both of the career cluster inventories, appears on both of the interest profiler, and also appears on the skills assessment. Receptionist also appears on those same ones. As I scroll down the page, I can see occupations that appear on 4 of these 7. So bookkeepers and accounting clerks appears on these 4. Court reporters appears on 1 set of career cluster, interest profiler 180 and 60 question, and the skills. So again, gives me food for thought. If these keep coming up, I may be interested in exploring these a little bit further, and that is completely okay. We encourage students to use their assessment results to have meaningful outcomes as they are navigating through all of this data that's inside of our system. You will notice that there are a couple of occupations that are denoted with little gold stars. These actually indicate that these students have saved those individual occupations within their portfolio. So if they've saved it and said, hey, this is a favorite occupation of mine, and it appears on a couple of assessments, this may be an opportunity for them to explore further, or you can provide them with additional guidance to help them to see if this really is something that they would want to do for their career. So again, excellent opportunities for you to engage in that advisement with that student. Now, when you initially come in, these are ordered by the count. You can also order these by the career clusters. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Order by Clusters, and you'll see that this particular table is reset, and you'll see that the first cluster alphabetically is Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources, again, that extension career cluster. So now your students can see under that particular cluster, Animal Scientists appeared on the Work Importance Locator. Zoologists also appeared on Work Importance Locator. So just gives you a different way to interpret your report. If you wanted to see another detailed report about exactly which assessments did I select and for which dates, you can click on Show Assessment Details, and it will tell you, okay, you selected Career Cluster Inventory that was saved on July 26, 2016. And so again, another way for your students to identify those common outcomes from those various assessments. It may help them to decide on what occupations they want to explore further. It could also be an opportunity for you to advise them on courses that they may want to take, to advise them on looking into a specific pathway, or to advise them on potential move-on when ready opportunities to take advantage of those dual enrollment opportunities to earn both that high school and that college credit simultaneously. So again, another opportunity for food for thought. All right. The next element I'd like to share with you is what is called the Learning Style Survey. Brand new feature that we have available. In the past, we had a PDF version of the Learning Style Survey. We now have an interactive component. And the Learning Style Survey is an opportunity to help your students to learn the ways in which they learn best. And so to locate the Learning Style Survey, or what we also call the LSS, you would hover over the Assessments tab. And over on the right-hand side, you will see a section called Informal Assessments. And the very first item under there is called Learning Style Survey. Let's go ahead and click there. And when I click on the Learning Style Survey, you will see that your students will look at 24 items, and they will tell which response best describes the frequency of their engagement. So, often, sometimes, or not often. And so to complete this assessment, we're simply going to go over to the right-hand side and click on Rate the Items. And you will notice that it has the first element for you immediately after you click on Rate the Items. The first item is, can remember more after my teacher tells me about a subject at the front of the class. And you have your 3 buttons in which you can record your response. And you'll see that it'll automatically navigate to the next question. You'll see that there's a progress bar at the bottom allowing you to see how many you have left. And once you get to the end of this particular assessment, I'm just clicking randomly, you will see that at the bottom that you'll now have a blue results button. And when I click on results, it will show me the 3 categories of preferred learning styles. So you are either visual, auditory, or tactile. And there are actually several students who lean on 2 or all 3 of these. So we give you food for thought on how you can incorporate each of those whenever the occasion calls for such. So if you wanted to see study tips on how you can incorporate those 3, you'll see a link that is called Check Out Learning Styles Study Tips. And when I click on that, I will get different study tips again for each type of user. So auditory, tactile, and our visual learners. So again, just another way to engage your students and help them to be successful as they are navigating through school. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click on the X to close that out. And I know I talked a little bit about this when we were looking at the combined report of assessments. We now have a shorter version of the interest profiler available this year. So if you go back up to your assessments tab, and you will notice that even though I'm in one particular area right now, I can actually navigate over to a different area without having to go back to the home page. So I'm going to hover over assessments, and I'm going to go under What are my interests, and I'm going to click on Interest Profiler 60 Questions. And when I click on Interest Profiler 60 Questions, my student will have an opportunity to look at 60 activities, and they will get an opportunity to enter one of 5 response choices. They can state whether they like it, they strongly like it, they like it, they're unsure, they dislike it, or they strongly dislike it. And please notice that there is a button that translates this into Spanish. So in the upper right-hand corner, if you click on Espanol, it will actually translate that entire page for you. I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner and click on Rate the Activities. And you'll see that the first item is Build Kitchen Cabinet. Here are my 5 responses. And I can simply click on my answers. You'll notice that this has the very same look and feel as the Learning Style Survey. You'll also notice that that is also true for the Interest Profiler 180 question version, as well as the Career Cluster Inventories 48 and 80 question versions. We want you to have a seamless experience as you are navigating throughout our system. If you're ever in the middle of an assessment and let's say that the bell rings, you always have an opportunity to save that assessment and be able to pick up on it the next time you log into the system. So I'm going to go to the upper right-hand corner and click on Save. And I'm going to type in stopped at number 6. I'm going to click Save Information, and you will see that it will show for my answer set 2. It'll have my thoughts and reflections that I entered. And then it also has today's date. I'm going to click on, so if I were to log out, let's assume that it's tomorrow. When I come back into the particular GCIS on tomorrow, I would go over to my portfolio. I would hover over where are the pages and the results that I've saved. I'd go down to sort and assessment results. And over on the left-hand side, I have a little table of all of the assessments that I've completed previously. I will click on Interest Profiler 60 Questions, and I see that I have Restore Answer Set 2. It'll say, your answers have been restored. You need to complete some questions before continuing. So I'm going to click on Some Questions, and it takes me right back to number 6. Now, when I hover over, and I'm going to show you guys a little cheat button that you should never share with your students, there's actually a way to get to the end of the assessment without having to click through all 60 of those questions. So if you look at the little Save button, you'll see that there is a little star that's over to the left of the word Save. And you'll see that there's a very light gray horizontal line. If you use both of these as your lines of demarcation, you'll see that if you go under the star, you'll see a cursor. And if you go to immediately below that gray line, you'll see that my cursor changes to a little finger. And when I click on that finger, that's pointing to the hidden button that students are never to know about. You'll see that it jumps you immediately to the end of that assessment. And so when you get to the end of the assessment, GCIS actually correlates your students' likes and dislikes of those 60 activities to 6 areas of interest, which are similar to the Holland personality types. And your students will be able to look at occupations ordered by conventional, investigative, social, realistic, artistic, and enterprising. Anytime you look at these elements, you want to look at your top 3. And so this person is conventional, investigative, and social. So to see what occupations fall under each one of those elements, I'm going to go ahead and click on conventional. And it tells me a little bit about people who have conventional interests. They typically like activities that follow set procedures and routines. And I can see all of the occupations in GCIS that are earmarked as being conventional. And so the first thing that you'll notice is that these are ordered by career clusters. So again, we have architecture and construction career cluster, again, noticing that earmark. And I will see the occupations that fall within each. I can see the levels of education, I can see the wages, and I can see if it's denoted as being green. I can also order these by the actual occupational title. And so I'm going to click on occupational title, and you'll see that it will sort these alphabetically. I may want to order these by the amount of education, as that is one of the columns. So I have an opportunity, it says ordered by selected, and it says first. So I want these ordered by education level. And I'm going to click on order by selected. And now my occupations are reorganized by the amount of education necessary. So it starts off with a few hours to 3 months. And I'm going to scroll down up to 5 years or more education. If I wanted to go back to my results, I'd click on my scores in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll take me back to my results. At this point, I can click on Save, and I can elect to type in something. This is completely optional. Save information. This now becomes a part of my portfolio. And now moving forward, when I go to the combined reports of assessment, this will be one of the options that I can now choose. This particular component, and I saw that someone had a question in the upper right-hand corner about the learning styles assessment. The learning styles assessment, we're actually going to change that out. So if you were to go to your website right now, you'll still have the original version, which was a PDF document. Moving forward, we are going to change that over so that you'll have that integrated component of learning styles assessment that you saw today. So stay tuned. We'll let you know when that's being released. Now that I've talked about several elements that you can use to meet your milestone requirements, I want to share with you that there are several elements inside of GCIS that you have at your fingertips that go beyond just what is required by the state. And so we have a whole host of financial aid topics. We have information about job readiness. We have several assessments and sorting strategies. And as you saw, we looked at the Learning Style Survey. We also looked at the Interest Profiler, 60 questions. We still have a whole host of other ones that you can kind of get your feet wet with. And I'll show you where you can find those. We also have information about military occupations. We've always had several students that were interested in such, and so those components have always been in there. We've just made it more prominent. So I'd like to show you some of those additional elements that might draw your students' attention as they are navigating through our system. The first thing that I mentioned was our financial aid file. Your students have an opportunity to look through $10 billion worth of financial aid on our system. And if they're just now being exposed to financial aid, we have a whole educational library on what does financial aid mean, what are the different options that are available, how can I apply, how can I avoid scams. So if you wanted to look at that type of data, what you would do is you would actually hover over the Education tab, and over on the left-hand side, you have a question called, where can I get help paying for college? And so the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that your students are familiar with financial aid and what that entails. So I'm going to click on Learn About Financial Aid, and you will see that you have a series of topics over here on your left-hand side, as well as various links where you can delve into specific areas when it comes to financial aid. What I'd like to show you guys first when you come to the financial aid is talking about the cost of school. And so we have different charts and whatnot that talk about average tuition and fees, amounts that you might pay for school. We talk about how to apply for financial aid. So we talk about different eligibility requirements, federal student aid, scholarships. We talk about grants. We talk about low-cost student loans so that your students are able to differentiate between those constructs so they can make informed decisions as they move forward. We also have different checklists. One's called Paying for School checklist, where your students can see different resources that would help them to navigate through the system. So again, we want to make sure that students are aware of what to ask, they are aware of the different options that are out there, and be able to maximize the various opportunities that they have in terms of financial aid. And so in addition to that educational piece, we actually have individual financial aid titles, and I'm going to click on that particular link, and it brings you to an alphabetical index of all of our financial aid titles that your students can look into to see if it's in fact appropriate for them. So what I'm going to do, I am going to scroll down to one that I showed some of my users earlier, and I think that this would also be beneficial for your students as well. I'm going to use that alphabetical index, and I'm going to click on Y, and I want to show you a specific scholarship that's called the Youth Service America Harris Woolford Awards. And this is a particular award that is available to students as young as age 12 up to age 25. And I know from looking at the registration that we actually had some non-traditional students who are also using the GCIS Junior. So this would be an opportunity for you to work with your youngest students up to your eldest students. And so it shows you how many awards are available, where you can use it. It gives you a description of what that award entails, gives you a deadline, tells you what the requirements are, and who you can contact in the future to receive additional information and how to actually enter your submission. If you have any students who are great writers, I'm going to go up to financial aid titles again, and I'm going to click on N because I want to search for one that's called National Writers Association. And you will see that we have a lot of national titles in here. So I'm going to go all the way down to National Writers Association Foundation Scholarships. And this is great for, again, any student that might be interested in journalism, literature, English, or writing altogether. And so it's a great opportunity for the students who may have items that they've already published or are self-published. This would be a great opportunity for them to kind of get their feet wet and use their talent to get them into college and be able to pay for that same college. Another thing that we like to make sure that our students are aware of are job readiness opportunities. And so we have our employment tab where students can learn about job search strategies that will help them to become marketable as they are navigating through not only future job market, but a lot of these elements can be used when they are applying to a post-secondary school. A lot of schools now are requiring your students to write short resumes to highlight possibly their volunteer experience, their sports experience, any clubs or activities that they may have been a part of. And so in this particular file, we share with your students how they can collect their information. We share with them how they can complete applications, which is necessary to get into college, as well as how to enhance their resume. Another element that I really like to look into is the job interviews. This is a really great component because you may have to do an entrance interview when you're applying to a four-year school. You can use the same information if you're trying to get into a club. I can speak personally. I have a sibling who's getting ready to apply to the governor's he has a scholarship component where she'll be able to get into a specific program to stay on a college campus for 2 weeks while she's in high school, and she has to interview as if it were a job. So I'm actually sharing this information with her right now so that she can prepare herself for that. So we're using this for a resume, and we're also using this for an interview, and she is in the 10th grade. So various ways that you can incorporate this information. Other elements that I'd like to show you, there are so many assessments inside of our system. So if you ever wanted to learn about the different types of assessments and sorting strategies, I'm going to hover over the Assessments tab. And there is a question called, How do I use assessments? And the first thing I'd like for the students to do is to look over, learn about the assessment. And so we talk about how to choose the assessments, explore your results, evaluate your results, and looking at the assessment link. And so for today, I'll talk about the choose an assessment, and it shares with you that they are chunked into 5 different categories. You can look at assessments from interest, personality, work values, skills, or your abilities and aptitudes. And we also provide links to various assessments within our suite of items as well. The next element that I'd like to show you that goes beyond just the regular requirements, inside of GCIS we do have post-secondary schools, so your students will be able to look at information that is related to either schools in the state of Georgia specifically, or you can look at schools around the nation. So when I click on Georgia schools, these are actually categorized as either 4-year in graduate schools, 2-year in technical schools, and vocational and career schools. If you just wanted an alphabetical index of those schools, you can go to the Georgia Schools link and then select from this listing, and it'll tell you everything it is that you need to know about an individual school. If you are looking at information on all national schools, you would click on U.S. schools, and this will provide you with an alphabetical index of all of the states as well as the U.S. territories, and be able to make your selections from there. And so once your students start navigating through this, they'll tell them everything it is that they need to know about various schools. And again, this would be necessary for your 11th grade students and their milestones. And I'd like to show you two more things quickly. We've often had individuals to ask about military occupations. Yes, we do have military occupations inside of our system. And so if you hover over the Occupations tab, you'll see that there is a question, what options are available in the military? And so we first again start them off with an educational component, so learn about the military. And so the students can find information about the various branches. They can look at educational opportunities within the military. They can look at how to join the military, different information about military life, and there's also information on here that parents might be interested in helping their child to decide whether the military is appropriate for what their career goals are. And the last thing I'd like to highlight for you, this is specifically applicable to my 12th graders, as we share with them, after you've received all of this wonderful, great information, what do you plan on doing with it? And so we have incorporated a new look for what is called the My Next Step reflection section. And this is located within the My Portfolio. So when you go to the new My Next Step item, you would go down to what are my plans after high school? And you will click on My Next Step. And when you click on that, you'll notice a brand new interface. So I actually have a little table that has 8 elements, and these are the same elements that you had previously, just with a different look and feel. And you now also have an opportunity to expound upon those education plans. So you say that you want to get a bachelor's degree, join the military, and to start working. Well, give me a little bit more context about that, and your students will have an opportunity to type in additional reflections as it relates to their what they plan to do in the future. And so I'm going to click on the house. And so even with our 1 hour, there are a lot of resources that we were able to cover, but there's still even more inside of the GCIS. So I would definitely encourage you to explore the system, get your feet wet, and learn about everything that you have available at your fingertips. Very great information to assist with that ongoing advisement with your students and to kind of give them food for thought as to how they can meet the goals that they have set for themselves. I want to thank you guys today so much for visiting with me and for participating in this webinar. I hope that you've learned some excellent components that you can take back and implement with your students. And again, we have more webinars that are coming up in the near future. Please feel free to visit the same training page that you visited to sign up for this particular session. We will also continue to record these elements and post them so that you and your colleagues will have an opportunity to look at them in the future. And we will also release several walkthrough guides that will help you to navigate various items on our system so that you can share with your students as they research and look throughout the particular resource. So again, thank you so much for participating with me today. I'm actually going to end the recording, but I'm going to stay on the line for a couple of minutes to answer some of the questions that I see on our chat window.